also to take care of that intense craving that comes up sometimes, like it's, we're using food to satisfy something, or replace something deeper that seems to be missing, or, something that's somehow broken.
Yeah.
And, what do you think it takes for someone to heal the relationship with food on that deep level?
Yeah. What does it take?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good question. It takes, okay, I think the number one thing that it takes is commitment and persistence and not being daunted by failure. So the work that I'm doing now a lot with women is around weight loss. And so I've been really looking at this whole weight loss issue, dieting, exercise, and the latest thinking, I mean, this is, if you've been dieting, this, but like the latest thinking is that, diets really don't work. They don't work. And again, see, like a woman will go on a diet and then the diet won't work and that woman will say, well, I'm bad. There's something wrong with me because I tried this diet and it didn't work. But the truth is, diets don't work. There's so many reasons why diets don't work, right? So number one, again, what does it take to heal on that really deep level? Stop blaming yourself. Like, just stop. I heard a weight loss expert say, my diets have failed me and that's okay. Like, it's okay that they failed, right? It doesn't mean anything about you. That's number one. I also have been working with an Ayurveda practitioner and a holistic nutritionist who, together we've been addressing this whole spectrum of issues that women face. So like what she brings to the table is, let's look at your amino acid balance. Let's look at your hormones. Let's look at just blood sugar regulation. What are you eating for breakfast? How hungry are you getting during the day? Are you paying attention to your hunger? Are you ignoring your hunger? Can you take time to, and when you are hungry, what are you reaching for? So like that whole sort of physiological level. And then what I also think it takes to really heal on a deep level is looking at the emotions that are driving the behavior, and then peeling back the emotions, looking at the beliefs, and then peeling back the beliefs, looking at some of the traumas that set those beliefs in motion. So it's kind of like, from a Buddhist point of view, it's like deconstructing the ego. Mm-hmm. Deconstructing the whole ego that built itself around, I am this person who struggles with food. Now, that's a lot easier said than done. And it takes tremendous courage, because really, truly, to heal, you have to be willing to give up your identity as, oh, I'm an emotional eater. Well, what if you aren't anymore? Who are you going to be? Right? So this is some of the stuff that we, in the class, we don't go quite this deep. Mm-hmm. Like mostly in the class, we're working with like the cravings and the binges. And the other piece that we work on in the class is the gut ecology, because that can be another thing that can drive cravings when your biome is out of whack. I mean, again, there's a whole constellation of causes and conditions that can cause somebody to overeat. So the healing is not just one thing, it's a whole complex thing. But it is possible. I mean, I do have clients and I know people who have lost the weight, healed the food, kept the weight off, and they're happy. So, yeah.
So could you give an example of someone who's really healed from, this dysfunctional relationship to eating and food? Or
yeah,
you don't have to name names, but maybe just a little bit about their process.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, okay. I have so many. I can just tell one story. So one of my clients was, she was going out to Sonic all the time. Sonic is you don't have Sonic in Ireland probably, but
I know what Sonic is.
Yeah, right. You know about Sonic.
Like fast food.
Yeah.
Yeah, fast food.
And, my coaching partner was working with her and saying like, okay, eat some salads and do this and do that. And, like, don't eat the fast food, eat salads. And she wasn't doing anything. Like, she was not following any of the recommendations. So I got on, a session with her and I said, so what's going on? Why? What's happening? And she said, it just feels really hard. It feels really hard to do this. And I said, okay, let's take a look at that feeling. See, here we are at the emotions, right? It feels hard, the struggle. All right, so what is your earliest memory of that? And where we got to was this little girl who grew up in Texas in the 1970s, 60s actually, sitting at a meal table, she and her sister with her parents. And what mom was serving for dinner was burnt meat, canned vegetables, and liver. It was disgusting. And she didn't want to eat it, 7 years old, right? So she's sitting there crying. This is her memory. And her mother made her sit at the table until she ate everything, even if it meant she sat there until 11 o'clock at night. And the whole time her mother is talking to her, she's saying, eat it, it's good for you. Eat it, it's good for you. Eat it, it's good for you. And I said to this client, do you understand that as a child, you associated healthy eating with torture and foods that taste horrible? And we did some tapping on that. And we went back in this, sort of deeper level of work where she as an adult could go back to that little girl and say to that little girl, hey, look, you know what? This isn't good food. Let's get out of here. Let's go play in a garden where you can actually eat some greens. And she had this huge, okay, she could let it all go. She could forgive it. It was gone. And then she wrote to me and said, okay, I just made a chicken breast with some sauteed greens and it was actually really good. And she said, okay, that's a start. And it's like, well, no wonder you want to go to Sonic after, if this is your idea of healthy food, right? So a lot of my clients have those kinds of associative memories of sitting at the table and, eat like a lady, whatever that means, right? Or, another one of my clients, she was binging on late night chips. And what really came up for her was she still had a lot of guilt because when she was a little girl, her mother tried to commit suicide and she thought it was her fault. So she had internalized all this guilt and then was eating to kind of, keep the guilt down. So this is where it takes courage to heal, because we popped the lid on that and went back to her, went back to that memory of where she first started to feel guilty because of her mother not being well. And going back to that little one and saying, you know what, listen, this isn't your fault, see? It's not your fault. And again, once that really energetically re-imprinted and she got it, she could say, she just threw the chips out. And now she's got sprouts growing all over her kitchen. And by the way, she's lost 21 pounds in 4 months. So I really get this privilege of seeing this happen pretty regularly. And even in the context of the class, we don't work that deep in class. Mm-hmm. But even just getting a little introduction to the tapping, starting to understand, really starting to, what is it that Sakyong says? What is it? Feel, touch, and be? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you really start to do that in connection to this struggle, this food, and you have the tools for it, and you have the willingness, and you have the courage, and you have the support, you can do it.